U.S. housing has broken another record because home buyers have dropped sharply this half year, leading to U.S. renters breaking 46 million households and setting a new historical record. As people say, in this lifetime, we can't afford to buy homes anymore. All the profits go to landlords. But some people also say, look at New York. If rent dares to rise again, just elect a mayor who will freeze rent. That's said in anger, of course, but if this happens, the problem becomes serious. If more and more people who can't afford homes are renting, what new housing crisis will this bring? For those who already own homes, especially investment landlords, can they really collect rent peacefully in the future? Before we start, please like this video. Your likes are my biggest motivation to keep updating and sharing. Even in America, the media is now reporting that young people are under pressure, not buying homes, not getting married, not having kids. And these young people also mock their elders, those who bought houses, even multiple properties. They call them boomers. The word boomers used to be neutral. It originally referred to America's baby boom generation. But now, the word boomers is more of a mockery, because this boomer generation in American history, whether in stocks or real estate, fully captured the era's dividends. To understand the future of U.S. housing, you must understand this boomer generation and what kind of era dividends they enjoyed. All of this is related to a special U.S. housing bill. Let me explain. This boomer generation, most were born after World War II. Many of their parents were World War II veterans who, after the war, returned home. Think about it. So many soldiers suddenly all returning, the government was under pressure. So the U.S. government introduced a bill called the GI Bill, the U.S. Veterans Rights Act. Soldiers who wanted to study could go to college, and the government at that time issued over 4 million ultra-low interest loans for zero down payment home purchases. The message was clear: get married, buy a house, have kids, settle down. So the boomer generation was born in this context where one father could support the family, houses cost almost nothing, work hard and you're middle class, the whole family living respectably in a big house. This mindset was deeply rooted in that era. But after all these years, it doesn't work anymore. Can't afford homes. It's not because of laziness, but because U.S. housing has serious structural problems. Why can't they buy homes as easily as their parents' generation? I often see comments online these days saying today's young people grew up in good family conditions. So when they grew up, they don't work hard, don't want to start families, they just lie flat. How could they afford houses? Too lazy, that's what they think. But every generation is actually the same. There are those who work hard to support families and those who are wasteful. Because if a person works hard but still feels powerless, the problem is likely not with that generation, but that generation's environment has changed, including the housing environment. But why wasn't it like this before? This brings us to America's historical housing welfare program. If you like architecture and understand urban planning, you've definitely heard of America's new home development system called starter homes, promoting affordable entry-level housing so working class people could reach it with effort and get on the ladder. Let's look at what America's entry-level homes used to look like. The first batch of starter homes was after WW2. We mentioned the housing bill earlier. These weren't big, 700 to 800 square feet, about 80 square meters. At that time, developers had development standards where they tried every way to keep costs around $7,000, which was equivalent to about 2 to 2.5 times a working family's annual income. How much would that be today? If based on 2024 U.S. family income times 2.5, about $200,000. You heard that, $200,000, that's unimaginable today. Now, U.S. housing median is $400,000 to $500,000. That's at least 5 to 6 times a typical family's annual income. And these starter homes have basically disappeared. Since the 1990s in America, housing policy has been discontinued. You could compare it to electric cars. If the government canceled EV subsidies, look at this year's EV sales, including Tesla's stock price. Of course, this policy gap has many reasons like insufficient land, high development costs, rising inflation, increasing government expenditure. But regardless, if you're buying new homes now, and builders tell you they're developing starter homes. Notice this is misleading. Because in architectural design, when determining floor plans, now it starts at 2,000 plus square feet. That can't be entry level. You need at least $120,000 annual income to even reach today's so-called entry-level housing. If you're young and single, you simply can't afford it. So young people aren't lying flat because they don't want to get on the ladder. There's no ladder to get on. When they were born, forget comparing to the boomers, even compared to their parents. The economic environment is completely different. Their parents, no matter what, at least caught the last train. But today's young people, even if born ready to run, they can't catch that last train. So can you blame young people for housing problems and say they don't work hard? The environment is different. The new question is, among these 46 plus million renting households, how will their fate differ from before? Among the current 46 plus million renting households, the renting population is about 120 million people. But this doesn't mean all renters can't afford to buy. Many people think buying and maintaining homes is wasteful. Having a house doesn't mean buying multiple properties makes life much better. So is buying or renting better? It really depends on the person. We'll discuss 3 types of people. First type, rational renters. This group has good income but actively chooses to rent. Like this person who says he invests in stocks, never bought a house, thinks renting is great. Simple reason, he's too lazy to deal with houses, thinks buying is burdensome. We always see debates about stocks versus buying houses. Some people say even if buying loses money, you still have a house, but if stocks lose money, you have nothing left. Anyway, regardless, this high-income group choosing to rent is still a minority. Most in the renting army should be the second type, those who missed the interest rate window for various reasons. These people had chances to get on the ladder when mortgage rates were 3%. A few years ago, many people scraped together down payments and bought. But some didn't understand then. For various reasons, they missed that interest rate window. They waited many years until now, and rates haven't dropped much. Actually, industry insiders have a consensus that once rates return to 5.5%, houses will be snatched up. Why? Let's do the math. Say we want to buy a median-priced home, $400,000 to $500,000 as mentioned, with 20% down payment, $100,000 down, $400,000 loan. If the rate is 7% now, monthly payment is over $2,600. If it drops to 5.5%, monthly payment is around $2,200. Don't underestimate that $400. Utilities come from that $400. You can make it work. You need to understand you can't wait until 5.5% to compete. When it's below 6%, many people jump in. Why? Because good properties are limited. At 6%, you still have choices, but at 5.5%, good houses are probably taken. The last type has qualifying restrictions for many reasons: physical reasons, mental reasons, status, or credit issues. Some don't qualify, can't get loans, so they must rent long-term. Once you categorize these 46 million renting households by demographics, you'll find the second type is just stuck on interest rates. They still want to own homes. If rates stay high, what should they do? Are state governments thinking of new policies to help them buy suitable homes? This depends on which state offers better home buying prospects. Because each U.S. state has different laws and policies, development plans, plus local regulations, we can divide these states into 3 representative types. First, land expansion policies, represented by Texas. Second, urban renewal, represented by New York. Third, policy deregulation, represented by California on the West Coast. Let me explain each one. First, land expansion type. This half year, many people doing real estate consulting with me are from Texas moving to California. There's a comparison. Although Texas climate might not be as good as California's, the living pressure, especially housing pressure, is generally much lower than California's. Texas housing prices rose high before, but also fell fast. They balance out. This might be very unfavorable for some real estate speculation groups in Texas. But if you're just trying to live steadily, ordinary people just wanting a stable home to live in, then Texas really deliberately wants to let ordinary people have houses through urban planning and land policies. For example, Dallas, its land management logic is completely opposite to New York and California. Dallas clearly indicates that developers should buy land as much as possible, build as fast as possible, build as much as possible. As long as you submit applications and want to build, they'll approve it. So you see, in the past, suburban cities like Frisco and Prosper were built full in 3 or 4 years. The feeling is that houses are endless. They build them for you to buy. Texas has 3 home buying advantages that New York and California can never match. First is faster price correction. Even if prices rose sharply before, because they increase supply, when housing prices drop, they can be pressed down, relatively affordable. Second is its accelerated development speed. Because Texas's land policy has strong continuity, it won't change due to elections or transitions. We mentioned before that what developers fear most isn't selling houses cheaply, but government constantly creating obstacles, policies changing one after another, morning approval and afternoon denial. How can developers invest? But Texas, at least in land policy, consistently supports large-scale, wide-range investment and development. Houses are built fast, supply recovers fast, price control is faster. Third point is that the government encourages these builders to provide more interest rate buydowns. For example, D.R. Horton in Texas has its own financing institution with rate buydowns. So this approach in development circle is called rent-to-buy market cultivation. What does this mean? You can move to Texas first, and if you're not in a hurry to buy, just rent first. When you want to buy and settle down, compare with New York and California. You'll find you can't buy there anymore. You can only realistically buy in Texas because they let you afford it. So don't look at Texas housing policy as extremely simple and crude. It's not easy to replicate. For example, New York simply can't replicate it. If Texas is lots of land, build freely, then New York squeezes out every bit of floor area ratio, fighting for every tiny piece of land in the city. In urban planning, this type of city renovation is called existing stock renovation, fitting things in gaps because there's really no land left. Especially in recent years, because of the pandemic, many core office buildings in New York that used to be expensive are now vacant. Architects and engineers try every way to convert these hundreds of office buildings in New York into residential buildings. Sounds appealing, right? Solving the housing problem? You're thinking too much. I won't go into professional architectural technical knowledge. You just need to understand one cost. Converting an office building costs much more than building a brand new residential building. Because heating, ventilation, fire safety, electrical systems, you have to strip everything and redo it. So the converted residences can only be luxury homes. Who benefits in the end? Still Wall Street executives and hedge fund moguls. It's developers playing games with rich people, having nothing to do with ordinary people's housing or improving New York's housing situation. So don't believe this office building conversion solves public welfare. Nonsense. Because New York really has no land left. This is like a city's water usage. Everyone needs to drink water, and when water runs out, it runs out. If more and more people come to the city, how do you sustain them? You can't. No water means no water. People won't die of thirst. They'll just leave, forcing population dispersion to surrounding areas with more land resources and relatively lower living costs. This principle is easy to understand, and New Yorkers certainly understand it. So why do they still support a mayoral candidate who advocates freezing rents, this kind of planned economy control? As our initial comment said, if you don't behave, we'll freeze rents for you, landlords. You'll find that many supporting this mayoral candidate are Wall Street white-collar workers, many from top universities. But this is definitely not the economic common sense universities taught them. But why did they still choose and support such a mayor? Emotional outbursts start from disappointment. Freezing rent expresses disappointment. Don't think landlords will be the final beneficiaries. So some people ask, if there are more renters, are landlords definitely winners? I think there are no winners in this real estate game. Because when real estate conflicts intensify, renters don't get benefits in the end. They can only find a scapegoat and beat up landlords first. So landlords, don't be complacent. We can only hope New York develops well, opens up a path to solve real estate problems, and quickly uses policy deregulation to encourage satellite city dispersion, dispersing population. You see, urban planning is very similar to flood control. Flood prevention isn't about blocking, it's about channeling. This requires policies to channel urban real estate. Let's look at California's real estate policy deregulation. Hopefully, it's not too late. The reason California still has trouble building houses is mainly three major restrictions. From big to small, the latest change is abolishing environmental laws. We did a special episode on this before, California abolishing environmental laws for various reasons. After this abolition, at least environmentally, you won't be prevented from building houses because of things like bird flight paths. This solves housing supply problems, good environmental policy deregulation. But the second problem is serious, regional zoning restrictions. We detailed this before, analyzing the relationship between zoning ordinances and real estate. But when I talk about this most crucial core knowledge, not many people listen. Here I'll try to explain plainly why California gets stuck by zoning. This is a very hidden but most core housing blocking tool. It blocks you from building houses. How does it block you? It limits what you can build on a piece of land, how much you can build, even how to build. For example, if a plot is zoned as single-family residential, marked R1 residential on technical drawings, no matter how big the land is, you can only build one house. No matter how big the land is, just one house. Note that American zoning and East Asian urban planning control systems have completely different purposes. East Asian urban development uses control planning to assist development. Development means economic growth, population growth, income growth. But American zoning is the opposite, more like protecting class interests. For example, rich areas, rich people certainly don't want developers building several more floors across from their homes, blocking their ocean views. So in actual development, you'll find this is a tacit understanding among rich people. Build luxury homes, we all build luxury homes, wealthy communities connected in large areas of luxury homes. This is the final result of zoning restrictions. The third restriction is community neighbor restrictions. California encourages local communities to participate in urban project development hearings. For example, residents come out saying they fear noise, hate traffic jams, fear homeless people from downtown circling around to their doorsteps, affecting housing prices, they just bought investment properties, and can't let market prices crash. These are all reasonable demands, right? But you can't exclude some people who just don't like you. You're a developer, you want to build houses. I just don't want you to build. You want to build. No way. Are there such people? Tons of them. Suing your project and blocking you for several years is normal. Developers fear trouble, so they won't build on that land. No building means no houses. No houses means housing prices get stuck. So you see, the second and third restrictions themselves aren't wrong in intent. Some developments really do significantly impact people's living environments. But this doesn't exclude these policies being abused by some people during implementation. But California is still working hard to promote various policy deregulation. They have to take it step by step. So some people ask if California still has prospects. Is it still worth living there? If you like California, don't just look at whether housing prices fall or rise. You should focus on real estate balance. For example, is the proportion of international buyers in your city very high? Is new development and construction approval more convenient? Is the infrastructure speed around your community faster? Look at these factors that affect the development of your local real estate in the next 3 to 5 years for the long term. This episode is actually because I saw many people's comments being quite dejected, saying they didn't catch good interest rates in recent years. Their families want to buy houses and have been waiting for the right time. After seeing this recent bill, interest rates probably won't drop short term, and they feel somewhat sad. I hope to speak from the heart to these friends. Renting doesn't represent career failure, life or family irresponsibility, or lack of investment vision. You need to know that many things in society or this era are coincidental. Don't treat what you missed in the past, what you didn't grasp, as your own mistake. Look, many people didn't catch 2008, right? Many people didn't catch Coca-Cola's IPO. Many people didn't catch Apple or Tesla stock entry opportunities. How can we say these are all people's mistakes? This is the first point. Don't blame yourself unnecessarily. Good times in human history are brief, which is why they are remembered countless times by so many people. But you should also note that eras have cycles and rotations. If you haven't waited for that optimal cycle time yet, you should learn economic and real estate related principles and analysis methods. Once you learn them, you don't need to rush, you just wait. If you didn't grasp entering that window period before, maybe because you weren't ready yet for various reasons, then future opportunities are reserved for you. Life is full of surprises everywhere. I also welcome everyone to comment and share. Do you really think that with more and more renters, landlords will definitely be the biggest final winners? Thank you for your likes and subscriptions. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss the next exciting share.